lucky bird, but I'm a little nervous up here. I'm Amaya, Garcia at Buffalo. We founded a Buffalo Pack community, and I am the 2022 Boys and Girls Club Choir Youth of the Year. Since 5th grade, I've been advocating and taking a stand for others who are afraid to speak up for themselves. My Wolfpack Community Project was founded in 2015 when I witnessed a classmate being bullied by my close circle of friends. I spoke up for my classmate, and they turned their focus on me and began to bully me. It was then that I decided to advocate for others through my Wolfpack Community Project, where I've encouraged youth to respect and value one another by being empathetic, inclusive, and accepting of differences, and to be open-minded to diverse perspectives. I have done this by giving empowerment and character matter presentations at schools, Anti-Bully Club, and the Boys and Girls Club. My goal is to empower youth to not be afraid to be their unique self, and to have the self-esteem to make it through high school without losing their self-identity and self-esteem. Recently, due to my own personal trauma, I have included the empowerment of survivors from sexual abuse and trauma as part of my platform. I have been volunteering with Tu Casa since I was 8 years old. Throughout the years, I have volunteered at gingerbread festivals, What is Love Gala, clothesline projects, and the Walk a Mile events. When I first met these wonderful ladies at Tu Casa, it was for the Walk a Mile event, which is an awareness event where men would march around the park in high heels to bring awareness and to encourage others to take an active role in the fight against sexual abuse. At the Walk a Mile event, I had the opportunity to run the bubble station for children and to hand out drinks to those in attendance. Although these were small gestures, I realized that the purpose was to let survivors know that they matter and they are not alone. The mission of Tu Casa, the Children's Advocacy Center, is there to provide support and empowerment to survivors, which aligns with my goals to bring value and awareness and to make the world a better place for ourselves and those around us by advocating for respect, self-worth, being kind and empathetic, no matter our story. I am here tonight to share with you my platform and to raise awareness on sexual abuse and the impact our reactions and the way we speak to a survivor can make a difference in them speaking up and working toward their healing journey. Abuse and trauma is very difficult for adults to come forward and speak of. Can you imagine how difficult it is for a child or an adolescent? Sexual abuse is the hardest thing you can explain, much less prove, and yet it is the easiest thing for the abuser to deny. Sorry, I'm kind of emotional up here. In all the years volunteering with Tu Casa, never would I have thought that my family and I would need their services. Tu Casa and the Children's Advocacy Center has been a staple in mine and my family's healing process this past few years after reporting the sexual misconduct of an uncle who married into my family in 2019. For me, this was by far the most difficult adversity I ever had to face. I had been holding this ugly secret for about 6 months. One night, I built the nerve to ask my mother for counseling. I thought if I could speak to a counselor, maybe she could come and tell my mom what was going on. But when I asked my mother for counseling, she began to ask what was going on why I needed counseling. I opened my mouth to speak, and the only thing that I could say was, "Oh, no reason. I just wanted to see what you would say." And I brushed off and I laughed about it. That was not what I wanted to say, but I lost courage and panicked. My mother remained asking me several times the next few weeks if I was okay and needed to talk about anything. But I would always deny and say I was fine. 3 weeks later, I found myself sitting on the edge of my bed crying, trying to figure out how to speak to my mother about what I was facing. I was running out of time. Thanksgiving was approaching, and I had to do something to keep from going to my aunt's house because I could not bear to be around her husband, who I grew up knowing as an uncle. So I finally approached my mother crying uncontrollably, and I told her how my uncle how he had been grooming me and messaging me inappropriately for the past several months. What I did not know was that I was not the only one in my family having to deal with his abuse. After speaking up, other family members came forward that he had been grooming and sexually abusing them since they were in middle school. I was very fortunate that my parents believed me when I told them what was going on. I say fortunate because not many survivors have that family support willing to protect those from abuse. They make excuses for the abuser and sweep it aside and act like it never happened. This happens often to protect the abuser because most of the time, the abuser is a family member or within close family circles, someone well known to the family and in a position of trust. What made it so difficult and had me wrestling with speaking up was because I was afraid that I would not be believed, because 2 years prior to this, my cousin, his stepdaughter, had spoken up about him abusing her, and she was punished. I was also embarrassed because this should not have happened to someone as I knew was my uncle. I was confused because he was talking to me like I was in a relationship with him. When I would not respond to his advancements, I also felt guilty that if I told, I would be ruining my aunt's happiness. But most of all, I was terrified that he would retaliate against me. So you can imagine that the weight that lifted when I could hear my parents say, "I believe you, and we are going to take care of this." They proceeded to report to law enforcement, which began a 2-year nightmare of legal proceedings. It was then that the staff of Children's Advocacy Center became a part of our lives. They were here for my family and I through all the proceeding, and most importantly, at the trial. Our advocates from CAC were there for my sisters and I in the courtroom because we were unable to have our parents in the courtroom for their support because they had not testified yet. Having our advocates in there for support helped give us the extra strength to face our abuser. When the time came where I had to take the stand and face him for the first time, I was so nervous. But as I gave my testimony and I told him my story, I felt something awaken. I had regained my confidence. The minute I stepped off that stand, I felt a rebirth of strength, and a heavy weight was lifted. At that point, I knew that I had regained my power over him, and I no longer felt like a victim. Although the outcome of the trial was not what we had hoped, but going through this experience made us survivors. This gave myself and my sisters the opportunity to tell our story and to break the chain of that ugly secret that has been holding us down for so long. To have my sister tell me that she was so grateful in me coming forward because without my strength, she would not have found hers to speak up. You see, there are many survivors who suffer in silence because of the shame and stigma that comes with sexual abuse. It is so easy to blame victims of abuse because of the rape culture we live in. In this culture, the responsibility is placed on the victims to prevent themselves from being raped or abused. Our justice system is so broken that the sad reality is that out of 1,000 rapes, only 5 are convicted. In order to put an end to this, we need to make it safe for the survivors to talk about their abuse. We must educate society on the premeditated act of grooming and leads to abuse, which is the act that is most difficult to be punished as a crime. Most importantly, we need to change the rape culture to hold the abuser responsible for their actions and to be more supportive when a victim comes forth about their abuse. The support a victim receives weighs heavily If they continue their healing journey as a survivor of their trauma or remain down the path of a victim, which can lead to serious addiction or negative forms of escape. Having someone there to say, "I believe you," has really given me the strength and empowered me to let others know that they are not alone. And there are support systems out there like Tu Casa and the Children's Advocacy Center, especially if they do not have the support system at home. I must admit, I almost lost myself. But by having such a strong support system, I was able to work toward my healing. Hearing the words, "I believe you," and the tremendous support from my parents, family, and the Children's Advocacy Center from Tu Casa gave me hope. Every step of the way was a little closer toward regaining my power over him. I know now that it took great strength and courage to come forward and to face him at trial. What I have learned that when you have others who experience what you are going through, it helps them to find the strength to come forward and break their chains to seek help. By speaking up, encouraged my sisters to speak up on their abuse, and now that weight is lifted to help them move forward and heal. I have always been the girl who is not afraid to stand up for those who cannot speak up for themselves, or to encourage others to keep going. Therefore, I plan to continue to advocate on the importance of being open-minded and to know that we all have some kind of battle we are facing that others are not aware of. But we need to be empathetic and show compassion. The impact of encouragement, support, and compassion can really make a difference to turn someone's life around. We may not be able to change the world, but if we can change the world for one person, I am pleased with that. I would like to thank Tu Casa and the Children's Advocacy Center staff for allowing me to take part in your mission throughout the years, for being there for me and my family when we needed you the most, and for your continued support with my platform. Ha ho.